I have a client who makes $1 million a year and still feels broke, and another who makes close to 100,000 a year and will retire wealthier than most surgeons. Today, I'm going to tell you two stories, one modern and one ancient, that reveal the one wealth principle almost no one understands. If you listen all the way through, you will walk away with a lesson wealthy families have used for generations, and Jesus taught 2,000 years ago. You will never think about money the same way after this. Now, this is not a religious podcast by any means, but there are still things that we can sometimes tie in and tie together, especially when we're talking about money principles. Hello and welcome to another episode of Before the Returns. I'm your host, Jaden Zubal, and today we are going to compare two stories, one modern and one ancient. So let's get into a little bit of the context here. All right, so let's talk modern story for a moment. This one is we'll just call this the Michael versus David story. Okay, so first let's paint the picture. So we have Michael. Michael makes $1 million a year. Beautiful family, thriving business, everything really well, bringing money in the door kind of situation, right? Great lifestyle, has a high lifestyle, so high spending, thriving business with high obligations, doing well on paper, right? So when you look at money coming in, great amount of money coming in, over 100 grand a month at times. But Michael often feels behind, feels like he's always catching up. It's one big month away from pure chaos, things falling apart, things just becoming a disaster, right? Because in Michael's life, money moves in a straight line, comes in the door, and immediately it has to shift to all the different expenses and all the different things that are coming up. With his income level, it's expected he'll likely be somewhere in the 30 to 40 million dollar earning window over his major working years, right? So before retirement and from the time he actually got settled in his career. So a significant amount of wealth generation happening, right? Or we should say maybe not just wealth generation, but a significant amount of income, of money coming in the door. But lifetime wealth, I'm going to predict almost nothing, right? So now let's talk about David. David is the $100,000 a year earner. In today's world, $100,000 a year often just gets you by. It's just enough to cover a reasonable lifestyle, right? But it's not typically thought of as a income level where people are generating significant amount of wealth. Now, let's assume during all of David's working years, he never makes more than 100,000 a year, but he has a modest and intentional lifestyle. So he's consistent with savings, consistent with predictable cash flow. So we know what's coming in, but we also know what's going out. We know where the money's going and when it's going out. His money moves in cycles. Okay, so lifetime income for David is probably around $3.5 million. Lifetime wealth is going to be significantly higher than Michael's, though. Okay, here's where the story gets a little more interesting. So how is it possible that the man who earned $20 to $30 million more has no wealth, and the man who earned $3.5 million dies financially strong? To answer that, I want to tell you a story from 2,000 years ago. Okay, so this is a story that most people know as the parable of the rich fool. Okay, so it's a story found in Luke in the Bible, and it basically is this is an ancient story that explains modern money better than any financial book ever written. Okay, so the parable of the rich fool. Let's set the context for this first, actually. So the context is in the Bible, during when this parable is told, Jesus is speaking to a crowd, and he comes out and he basically says, "The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully," meaning that this wealthy man has a great harvest, right? The farmland did really well that year. Everything grew really well, turned out awesome. Then he continues on to say, "And the rich man thought to himself, 'What shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits.'" Meaning, his barns can't contain it. He doesn't have anywhere to put all of the harvest that he got. And he said, "This will I do. I will put down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and all my goods." So he says, let's tear them down. Let's build bigger ones, right? Let's get rid of this old stuff. Let's just build more containers to hold everything that's growing. And he continues on to say, "And I will say to my soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry." Right? We've all heard that before. The old eat, drink, and be merry thing. He's basically saying he had a great harvest, so now just sit back, relax. Security's there. Everything's going to be just fine. Don't need to worry about anything anymore. But God said unto him, "Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided?" So he's basically saying, okay, tonight your life is going to end. And everything that you've built, what's going to become of it? Right? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God? Okay, so basically, it's saying that the rich man had this huge harvest, sat back, got lazy, and said, okay, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. We're good. I'm going to hoard all of this, hide it, keep it safe. So his mistake in this parable was he confused storage with security. Okay, so let me repeat that. He confused storage with security, right? So this is where, let's tie it back into our story just for a minute here. That parable describes Michael perfectly. So coming back to the guys we're talking about at the beginning, right? Abundance without purpose, and income without direction, and storage without a system. Okay? He kept building bigger barns. But success isn't something you own. Success is rented, and the rent is due every day. So you can build and build, but if what you're building is just more outflows, are you really building, right? Now, Michael's money moved in a straight line and died every time he spent it. David's money moved in circles and kept working even while he slept. So let's talk about linear money versus circular money, right? Continuing these two stories for a minute. So Michael has linear money, means he earns, then he spends, and it's gone. So it doesn't matter if you earn 100,000 a month. If you have 95,000 a month in bills and your income shifts just a little bit, you're in trouble, right? Money exits the system permanently. So it just keeps shooting out. There's no compounding, there's no resilience, and you're always catching up. In previous episodes, we've talked about this, but this idea of lifestyle creep. If you keep making more money, but you keep spending more money, you're not really making progress, right? You're just spinning the wheels. So bigger barns, meaning he gets a bigger house, he gets more cars, he gets more vacations, all these things. It doesn't necessarily equate to more security. In fact, it typically equates to more insecurity. Linear wealth collapses when you stop, right? So in the case of somebody making 100,000 a month, the only way that 100,000 a month can equate to long-term wealth is it either has to be coming from a business that you don't have to operate in, so you're not personally generating that 100,000 a month, right? Or it has to come from, or excuse me, it has to go into things that grow for you in the background. So getting your money working for you, right? So that gets into the circular money. So David's system. David's system is to earn, store, then deploy, refill, and grow. So he creates a circle of money, right? Earn, the money comes in the door. Then we store it. We pick a bucket to store it in that enables us to deploy the money from the storage bucket into some sort of investment, into some sort of cash flowing wealth creation tool, which then generates that cash and generates that income. We refill our storage container with that, and it continues to grow. It grows in both the storage container and it grows in whatever we're investing in at that time. Okay, so now we've created a circular model with our wealth. Money never leaves permanently. Compounding continues even while being used, and stability increases with time. So wealth continues even if you stop working. You can now step back and the wealth keeps going. There's where the wealthy man got it wrong in that parable, right? Is he stepped back. What good does the harvest do if it's all stacked up in a barn? It does nothing for anyone, including the wealthy man at that time. So Michael earned money once, but David earned money every time it moved. Okay, so this is the big moment here. So wealth isn't built by what you store, it's built by what you circulate. So think linear versus circular. We want a circular wealth system. The rich fool stored everything and secured nothing. So let's put it all together here. Big picture numbers. Michael earned $20 to $30 million. Straight line system. Money resets every month. So it doesn't really matter how much is coming in the door, right? 100,000 comes in, $99,900 goes out. Michael has $100 under constant pressure all the time. I've experienced this in my own personal finances at times, right? I think for many people we go through these moments. Like I've lived a Michael moment where I've looked back and said, okay, income was really good. I thought everything was going well, and I didn't feel like I had anything to show for it. It was just constant spinning of the wheels. So you might buy a few cool things here and there and be able to have a little bit of fun, but it doesn't provide a long-term future, right? There's no long-term outcome. There's no legacy to be created or left. Lifetime income is enormous. Lifetime wealth, fragile, if anything. Now, David earned maybe $3.5 million over his lifetime earnings. But because of that circular system, he had consistent savings, cash flow was predictable, and the dollars were able to multiply. Okay. They were able to multiply, so we didn't look like the rich fool. Stress was much lower because of that, and the wealth grew quietly. Lifetime wealth was strong, and stability was strong. Now, I mentioned just a second ago that wealth grew quietly. Oftentimes, some of the people that we meet that are the wealthiest, you would never know, right? You have no idea. And sometimes you meet people that are like Michael, where they have a high income and it looks like everything is really good. But again, that doesn't equal wealth. That is just money coming in the door today. What happens if that money stops tomorrow? So Michael didn't fail because he didn't earn enough. He failed because his money had nowhere to go. Now, David didn't win because he earned a lot, right? His income was a lot lower. But he did win because his money had a job, a purpose, and a path, right? It had a path back to him every single time. So if he deployed money for something, he was employing or he was deploying it for something productive. So the rich fool earned money once. Michael earned money once. And both ended the same way, with nothing that lasted. David earned money every time he moved it. Every dollar had a cycle, a purpose, and a return. That's why a $100,000 earner can finish wealthier than a $1 million earner. The goal is not to build a bigger barn, right? The goal is to build a system that keeps working even after you stop working. So again, the rich fool just created a bigger barn. Think of that in modern times as we're buying bigger houses, we're getting cooler cars, things like that. Okay, so this circular system is the foundation behind family banking. It's not the product, but it's the system. I try to reiterate this often with people, but the product, when you're dealing with financial products and tools and all these different things, the product really is not the big win. It's the system. You have to have the right system. You have to have the right mindset around money, or the product doesn't mean anything. You can have a great product and still fall flat on your face if you don't understand the system and you don't implement it correctly. So next week, I'll show what a properly designed policy actually looks like and why most people unintentionally build modern versions of the rich fool's barn. So if you want money to stop slipping through your fingers, if you want your income, big or small, to finally become wealth, it starts with this. Stop earning money once, start building a system that earns every time it moves. Okay, with that, thank you for joining another episode of Before the Returns, and we will talk to you next week.